success in business. Winegard Company was awarded the first Champion of Hidden Talent Award at the annual dinner a few weeks ago. Denise Johnson, Vice President of Human Resources at Winegard, is going to share with us today how Winegard has worked to remove barriers at work and to tap hidden talent pools. Denise brings a diverse portfolio to the leadership team at Winegard. She's earned a PhD in educational policy and leadership, a master's degree in sociology from the University of Iowa, and a bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science from Iowa Wesleyan College. Denise is highly involved in creating a culture where innovation and employee empowerment are primary values, and her primary focus is mapping out the organizational structure and finding candidates with optimal skill sets to help Winegard maximize business opportunities. Please welcome Denise.
Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for taking time out of your lunch to share with me. And let's tap hidden resources. So I'll tell you a little bit. I was a little nervous about this, and I typically don't get nervous talking. For those of you that know me, running off the head is relatively easy. And then it occurred to me it was technology. So I'm very embarrassed to say I have a bachelor's in computer science because I have kidnapped our VP of marketing to help me. So if you see this beautiful Black woman behind me, it's Daphne. So give Daphne a hand. Well, first of all, as we get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about Winegard. We have about 500 employees, including our contract employees. We have 5 locations. Primary location is in Burlington, where the bulk of our employees are. We have 2 facilities here. And then we have facilities in Indiana, Idaho, Oregon, and Elgin, Illinois, and Quincy, Illinois. Now, at these facilities, it's primarily engineers and sales, but we do have a network across the United States. So that has provided to be a little bit of a fun challenge, I should say. So starting off here, you're going to be hearing the word in as we go on and talk about labor, not necessarily in this presentation, but as a rule, you're going to hear Sandemic. And this definition here says, whereas pandemic implies all people, Sandemic means without people, or in this case, without enough people. So that's what's going on right now. We don't have enough people to fill the job openings. Now, this next session, when I talk about the landscape of the labor force, my source is Ron Hetrick, and he's a senior labor economist for MC Burning Glass. So I want to make sure I recognize the source. This is what you're going to expect today. Why is this important? So this is where I'm going to lay out what the labor force landscape looks like. Next, we're going to talk about who are these hidden resources? What is this labor pool? And lastly, we'll talk about some of the challenges and opportunities. So I want to talk a little bit about pre-COVID workforce. There's this notion that as soon as the pandemic monies run out or the pipeline is dry, that the labor force is going to bounce back to where it was pre-COVID. I'm going to say that's a myth, and I'm going to tell you why here. So the pre-COVID workforce has consisted primarily of baby boomers and millennials. Baby boomers are 1946 to 1964, people that were born in those years. They call the baby boomers 1955 to 1964. So those would be your 58 to 67-year-old. And they made up a pretty big chunk of this labor force. This is, however, even pre-COVID, you're going to see that the 55-plusers are just starting to exit. One of the other interesting things about pre-COVID and this whole baby boomer generation, this is when women entered the workforce. And this had a dramatic influence on mean household income. So in 1955, the beginning of the baby boomers 2, the mean household income was $5,000. You go 20 years later, you go to 1975, it was $14,000. And 20 years after that, 1995, $56,000, a dramatic increase, even adjusting for inflation. So that's going to have some significant impacts on also this millennial generation. The other thing about the baby boomers, they're more educated typically than their parents, and they're wealthy. So let's go on to what's going on now. The labor force is not rebounding. And I want to back up a little bit. When I talk about low skills jobs, I'm referring to the job themselves, not the people that fill the jobs. So it's more of an entry level job, and that's really where these hidden resources can enter the workforce. So if I say low skill, please don't think that I'm talking about the person themselves. I'm talking about the skill set necessary to do the job. Well, one of the labor pools that help fill these jobs is our immigrant labor force. And with immigration restriction, this has has really narrowed the pool of immigrant applicants. And this is just straight facts. It's not political or anything like that. So please don't shoot me. So next thing that's going on here, you're having the exodus of your baby boomers. They're getting retirement age. Now, COVID, it was happening prior to COVID, but with COVID, the stress involved increased the rate of exit. There was some fear of contracting the disease, and they also they had the money saved and they could exit. So they are. Now, when COVID hit, they say it's a perfect storm. I've heard it described as a perfect tsunami, hurricane, and tornado all in one. This just rapidly increased the rate that the baby boomers were leaving the market force. The other thing that's going on here that's kind of interesting, it's prime age men. Prime age men participation rate in the labor force is declining. Prime age men are typically 25 to 54. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the younger ones. But they're saying that with the boomer wealth, that this has caused delayed responsibility. So this is really interesting statistic, I thought. 25 to 34-year-olds more are living with their parents than a spouse. And it's because they can. Their parents have the room, the parents have the wealth. They're not pushing them necessarily into the workforce. Maybe they are, and maybe they're just resisting. But by 2030, the millennials are going to be the wealthiest generation in history. So they will inherit approximately $68 trillion. The other time that these prime-aged males, and this is primarily the 21 to 30-year-olds, they like part-time work. So in the Great Recession, that erased 4.5 million jobs, and they went then to retail and restaurants. And they liked it. And there's been a correlation that the 21 to 30-year-olds like video gaming. So this part-time work works with that. I'm not saying it's a cause and effect, but there is a correlation. So let's go on to the future workforce. Our population, working age population, is dramatically shrinking. And just to maintain where we're at with working age, we need a 2.1% birth rate. These always crack me up when I see these. I mean, 2.1, you can have a 2.1 baby. But anyway, approximately 2. Now, right now, we are seeing 1.7%. And this is a statistic that holds true for most developing countries. So the people aren't elsewhere in the world in developed countries to bring over. So there's the why. Why is it important? The labor force pool, as we know it, traditional labor is shrinking, and it's not going to bounce back to previous levels. So who are these hidden resources that we could tap that maybe traditionally we haven't? There's inmates. We at Winegard is currently working with Iowa Prison Industries, and we actually take work over to the Mount Pleasant Correctional Facility. We have work cells set up there. We're getting ready to take another work cell over there. And this has helped us significantly during COVID and now, and I see it being a partner for ours for a long time. At least I hope that it will. We take the work there. Now, the work that needs to be taken there needs to make sense to transport it, to assemble it, and not a lot of heavy equipment. I mean, you're not going to take an 800-ton press over there, but more assembly type work. The other option that we're starting to pursue would be bringing inmates to our facility. And then the third option is once they leave incarceration, they become employees. So we're doing level 1 at this point and looking into level 2. Disadvantaged populations. I'm going to talk to people like Bridges. There's Bridges Out of Poverty here in Burlington, or Burlington Building Bridges. Celebrate Recovery halfway house, homeless shelter. I mean, this population that has had financially is hurt. Now, Bridges defines poverty, and I like this definition a lot, with 11 facets. So they have financial, emotional, spiritual, mental health, physical health, support systems, relationships, formal language. Formal language would be like I'm speaking now. Then the informal would be more slang and the impact that that would have on perception of others. Motivation, integrity, and hidden rules. Hidden rules is especially important because the middle class norms are what governs most workplaces. So the people in this group typically don't have those norms. And so norms are, in a sense, hidden rules. So what would be an example? Okay, if they come 5 minutes too late, you don't do that. The norm is you come a little early. If they have a cell phone on the floor, don't have your cell phone on the floor. Tell your supervisor if you're going to be gone. Don't just show up, as that looks very irresponsible. So these norms and hidden norms are something that really need to be explained over and over and over again, quite honestly. Hope Haven would be people with disabilities. Then we've had that. COVID actually hurt that a little bit, and also did hurt the prison because every place was on lockdown, the facilities, the Hope Haven, and the prison itself. But now these are opening up. This has proved to be really great workers for us. They deliver them. They're very diligent, and they've integrated well into our workforce. Non-English speaking. We primarily have Hispanics. We do have a few Philippine, Laotian, but Hispanic would be the bulk of our non-English speaking. And what we try to do initially is make sure we have a bilingual person in their work area, and also put them with someone that have very similar cultural values, so that they feel like they belong, they fit in. Once they do that and they meet others, then this is so much easier to integrate them into different work cells and that. But to give them, to help with that comfort zone is something that's worked well for us. The other group is the older retirees. Now, these are your baby boomers again. Winegard has 33% of its workforce are baby boomers. So we really want to work with this group of employees. They bring so much tribal knowledge, and their work ethic is over the top. Okay, so what are some of our challenges, opportunities? Transportation. Often when you're working with some of these groups of people, especially the disadvantaged, they don't have a car, or maybe their vehicle is just not reliable at all. High probability they may not have a driver's license. Celebrate Recovery, I didn't explain much about that. That's a group that it's not only addicts, but it's also if they've had a broken relationship, maybe they've experienced a lot of childhood adult trauma from broken relationships, so a bad divorce. So it's recovering from that trauma. But addicts are definitely a component of that, reformed addicts, I should say. So often they don't have a driver's license. The other thing that's just like the chicken and the egg. So if they could get a driver's license, and I'll speak primarily, I know, of the Bridges population with regards to this, they may have a lot of traffic violations or tickets that need to be paid. Well, they can't get their driver's license till they pay their tickets, and they can't get a job till they get their driver's license. So it's really that catch-22. We're trying to provide resources to help them pay those fines off, and this would be through Bridges and other entities. And then we're also, there's also being programs where cars are becoming provided for the non-reliable transportation. But transportation's a big deal. The other issue that we work around, and it's necessary for this group, are outside commitments. This may be a probation officer that they're going to meet with, drug court, a mental health counselor. They may ride share with someone, take care of a parent, maybe the daycare hours as such. And it's really important that they keep these resources and these support structures in place for them to be successful. So it's sort of difficult at times because they're not, it's really a private matter for the employee. And I don't want to necessarily just prod and expect them to tell me their whole life story. If they want to, they're always welcome, of course. But to at least say, hey, I've got these commitments on Tuesday afternoon, or I can only work 6 to noon because I've got commitments, that's okay. But no, there are a lot of commitments out there. And I have to say, I had the opportunity to go to drug court. I was not a participant, so I just happened to be a visitor. Yay. So anyway, it is the last step before going to prison, and primarily addicts. And it's a very structured program. Judge Schilling was administering drug court the time that I visited. And I found it super interesting. He had every single participant come and introduce themselves to me and explain to me the importance of a job. They all said, number one, it gives me self-esteem. It helps increase my self-esteem. I feel like I'm contributing to my family. I feel better about myself. And number two, when I'm at home and just sitting there bored, I think about using. So if I'm at work, I'm busy, and it helps me with my addiction. So I can't impress enough how critical it is to allow employees to keep those resources. Health concerns. There's been a dramatic increase in stress-related illnesses, especially after COVID. And I was looking at our health insurance data last week, and I only see it in the aggregate, as I should. But I saw a dramatic increase in anxiety and depression and the medications utilized to treat this. So on the one hand, I was pleased to see that people are getting help. On the other hand, it is concerning. And this goes for all our employees at Winegard that I've seen this. But this group that I'm talking about, mental health, it's a big hurdle for them. So at Winegard, we have an extensive wellness program that addresses not only exercise, diet, but also mental health, as we know that exercise helps with that. We have an EAP program, Employee Assistance Program, and this provides counseling, legal advice, financial advice, elder care advice, and it's all free. It's free to the employees or anyone that works at Winegard, and we highly encourage the utilization of this. We also have telehealth, and those visits, if you're on our health insurance plan, the telehealth provides to that. The EAP is standalone from that. But we provide a private room so people can use telehealth if they so choose. And it's free for those on our insurance. And they do provide psychiatric and mental health counseling through that. So that's something I just think that I just see across the board. We've got to keep our eye on. The other thing that is something to understand is often they can only work limited hours. Now, I had an employee from Celebrate Recovery come up, and she wanted to work 6 to noon, 6 days a week. And we were working on Saturdays at the time. And great, love it. Then she came back to me and she said, Denise, I can't. I have to work under 25 hours. My casework told me if I work more than that, I'm losing my health care, I'm losing my dental, and these would be state provided programs. And I just looked and I said, well, of course, you can't. So let's just work what we can. And for us, it isn't a matter of that they have to work 40 hours, but it needs to be predictable. And I tell them that. Now, if you can only work 2 hours, I don't want it to be 8 to 10 one day, 1 to 3. And it could be if we had a schedule, but I want a schedule. I want to know when they're coming to work and when we can expect them so we can organize our work. And once that's laid out, they're very good about developing a schedule, and they understand my expectations, and I certainly want to meet theirs. The other thing, trust and anger management. So this group of people, and I'm talking primarily the disadvantaged group, they've had a lot of trauma in their life. And so there's a significant trust issue, and they may have anger management issues, and they'll tell me this, and I appreciate that. So we talk, and I try to spend more time introducing myself, or typically, I'll be honest, I wasn't that hot about that. I'm still not as good as I need to be. I try to make sure they have one-on-one with their supervisors and their immediate supervisor, so that they start to develop relationships. They start to feel like we are people that they can trust, that we have their back. I am pretty involved in bridges. And I've got connections that celebrate recovery. We have employees in both groups. So that has helped me build trust. Just sort of a built-in relationship when they come, because often they come to work for us because of that. And I just flat tell them, they'll tell me I have anger management. And I'll say, okay, don't go off on the floor. If you need to go off, if you feel your blood a curdling and you just about had it, you come in my office and you go off. And if my door is closed, that's okay, but you remove yourself from the situation, because I'm not going to tolerate behavior that's not healthy just because of the where the people come from. They have to behave in a professional manner, but I want to acknowledge that they do have hurdles that maybe I haven't had. So that's just something to keep in mind. With the prison, the preconceived notions had a little bit of pushback from our existing employees, like, oh, wow, you're taking everything to the prisoners. And what they don't understand is you have to show that there's not a civilian that wants the job. You have to show that that's not there and you can't fill that. So it's not like we're taking jobs away from productive citizens in our communities. And I look at that to probably be a little bit bigger deal too if we bring the inmates to the facility. But I look at it as they're doing their time. They're being punished, and I personally don't think they have to be punished their entire life. So we're going to be working through some of that, I hope. And just my way to work with it, I'm just going to communicate, have meetings, tell me concerns, and just hit it head on. The language barrier, I think I mentioned to you, we try to have a bilingual worker in each work area, especially when they first come on, so they know who they can communicate with. I have noticed that even with the Hispanic speaking population, there are different dialects for different places in Mexico. So we've tried to, not that we have dialects for every place, but to say, okay, can you understand? Is this a dialect that will work for you? If not, try to find somebody who has. And if we can't, say, well, this is the best we can do, and then we'll reach out to the community. The physical limitations. This is primarily to our older employees that they want to work, but maybe they were at a job that was relatively physical and they're nearing retirement and it's just too hard on their bodies. So we put them in the electronics room. We have hardware bags, but we do whatever we can to accommodate what they can do. And leadership expectations. This is back to where the hidden roles come in. We used to have a 5-point system. You hear 3 strikes, you're out. Well, we were 5 strikes and you're out. So you get 5 points, you get a half a point if you were late, or I can't even keep it all straight. It was not that complicated, actually. It's fairly straightforward. But we still have expectations. We still, expect people to be at work. However, we're much better at working with the people. Hey, I've noticed you're 15 minutes late all week. What's going on? Well, we found out one person didn't have a car and their bus was late. Well, okay. So found out another person, maybe the daycare didn't open on time that week, or that's why they were habitually late. So we changed their hours. So to work within that, so they can still meet the expectations and yet it's reasonable. There was a day, I've been doing this a long time, that people just never ask, late, you're fired. Those days are gone. And I'm glad to see that they're gone, actually, because we're learning more. We're more compassionate. We sent our supervisors and some of our leadership to our community listens. It's a Barry Waymiller training, and it was going on here in the community. I know some of the policemen, firemen, city employees, also other employers in town were attending some of that. That was really good about communicating and how to address behaviors you don't want in the workplace, but in a very positive way, and to try and get to the core of the problem. One thing I have found out, like if I have a really angry employee, and maybe they're just a pot stirrer. Now there's always those, but often when I have them come in and we get to talking, and I'm usually pulling them in to reprimand, like, what's going on here, this behavior, blah, blah. 9 out of 10 times they're going through some stuff at home. And it's usually pretty serious stuff. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a kid in jail, maybe they've got drug addiction, maybe it's an elder parent with dementia. But 9 out of 10 times, it's something like that. And once we get to the heart of it, then I can give them the resources that we provide. I don't want you to think by any stretch of the imagination I'm a counselor. I'm not. I'd be terrible. But I have found the more I listen, and I love having these resources at my tip saying, hey, I highly encourage you to do this. What's going on at home is actually more important than work. Take care of home. So we also, I'd encourage all of you to send some of your people to Vern Reed conducts these building bridges seminars, and that really gives you an appreciation and an understanding of some of the challenges that people in those programs have gone through. I'm a partner. My partner, her mother's a meth addict. Her mother's homeless. Her siblings are all meth addicts. Brother's in prison. Sisters lost kids to the foster care system and will not get them back. Rights are terminated. And the fact that she's not an addict, she is working, she's a good parent, I'm amazed. I am completely amazed by it. So I would highly encourage an awareness. There's a stereotype that you're poor because you're lazy. And I'm going to tell you, the more you learn about this population, the more appreciation you'll have for where they come from. And laziness isn't the issue. So, okay. So the other thing I just want to say in summary, it makes sense to do this. It not only makes sense from a labor pool standpoint, it's also the right thing to do. I mean, we see that people that have, oh, hang on, we got a little deal here. So glad my person's here. Her phone's ringing. There we go. That, like with inmates, the reincarceration rate, I looked up the word recidivism. I can't say it. And as I told you, their self-esteem is important. That decreases dramatically if they have a job. And, I'm thinking the more we can get people to be contributing citizens in our community, the better our community is going to be, the better our workforce is going to be. And it's the right thing to do, and it makes sense. So with that, I'm just going to ask, has anybody else had any experience with hidden labor, challenges, hurdles, or questions you have for me? Well, workplace flexibility, I think I addressed the pathways to work. I'm just we went to the high school and saw like their industrial programs. We really want to start working with the pathways with high school. And also, Iowa Wesleyan University and Southeastern Community College have formed an alliance. And one of the initiatives of this alliance is you can go to SCC and declare you want to go to Iowa Wesleyan right out of the chute. And there's a lot of programming on both campuses to help the disadvantaged. I mean, there's TRIO at Southeastern, at Iowa Wesleyan. They're doing a lot of work in the Student Success Center for people of poverty, first generation, learning disabilities. So, yeah, now that would be the group I was talking to today, referring to, I was addressing more entry level hourly positions. But I'd love to see skilled trades, and I'd love to see more professionals, the development in that, and be an apprentice type program for them. Yeah. So I haven't really set a specific policy. It just became a practice. Because the policies that govern our workforce are going to be the same, but it's more where are we going to recruit from? So that would fit within that. If I have flex work hours and the like this population needs, I would also provide those for an employee. For instance, I just changed work hours for an employee whose parent has dementia, and she needs to, is sharing this with a sibling. So the policy wise, I would keep the policies consistent across the organization. It's more recruitment wise. Mona Ash is your bridges person. I can't think of the name of the Celebrate Recovery. I don't quote actively recruit. I just say, hey, Winegard's out there. This is what we do. And I'll tell Mona, I guess I do actively recruit. If you have anybody that wants a job, send them to Winegard. Now, I'm going to be honest, out of the chute, we go through contract agencies. So $12 an hour is what they're going to make out of the chute. Now, our hourly employees, and then Winegard start at like $12.50. But now that's not the ending. That's our entry level. We make all the way up to typically $19-20 an hour is the range. However, I'm not naive enough to think if they're on government subsidies, $12 an hour is going to cut it. It's not to replace that. So that's where the flex hours come in. But as I said, I would do that with others too. But Mona Ash would be your contact at Bridges. Bob Bartles just retired, but I know you could call out to Hope Haven. Celebrate Recovery, I've done word of mouth. We've had several employees that go there. So they are actually coming to me now. But I'd highly encourage Mona Ash. Oh, she's at the loft, by the way, at the Methodist Church. Oh, that's great. I think I have met her. I need to capitalize on that resource too. Thank you. Yeah, so any more questions here? We got time for a few more, then you can go have some lunch, or maybe you've already eaten lunch. I must say I appreciate all the time everyone's taken to tap into this, and don't hesitate at all to contact me. You can call at Winegard, and or I'm sure the chamber has my email address, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. But this is something I'm very passionate about and would like to help you any way I can. Okay.
Thank you so much, Denise. And thank you all for being with us today. Join us again next month, and we hope to see you all tomorrow at Business After Hours at United Rentals. See you next time.